The modern American school day is built for a world that just doesn't exist anymore. Most school schedules assume there's a parent free at 3 p.m. to pick up their kid, but for most people that's just not the case anymore. And even if you put aside what's best for families, this just doesn't make much sense economically. The US loses an estimated $55 billion a year because of the mismatch between school schedules and parents' work schedules. So why hasn't this changed? Why does society cling to something that isn't working for us? I recently put that question to Betsey Stevenson. She's an economist at the University of Michigan who used to be on the White House Council of Economic Advisors.
There's everything about the school day that's a nightmare. You can talk about the time, like the kids get out in the middle of the afternoon, which is an awkward time for somebody to pick them up. The fact that the kids have random days off during the school year, it's a teacher work day. Here's your Wednesday. There's no school. What? Why is there no school on this Wednesday? School was never designed to be childcare. It was designed to be education. And the challenge is that school was designed for when there was a stay-at-home mom or a mom who was working around the house, because this was designed at a time when a lot of what we consumed was actually produced at home. So moms might cook meals from scratch. They might, hand wash clothing because there were washing machines, hand wash dishes. They might be, tending to, crops or animals. And we've now transitioned to a world where most people work outside the home. So what we do is the things we're good at, and that has been amazing for raising living standards. What it's not been amazing for is thinking about how do we integrate our work outside the home with our parenting responsibilities, with our school's education.
Can we talk about mothers? Because I'm wondering how much the role of mothers has changed. I mean, even perhaps since when our children were young, but certainly since when our parents had children and our grandparents had children, and how the role of the mother today is not the role of the mother that the school day is designed for.
I think families are moving much faster towards shared parenting responsibilities than the school system's designed for. And there was a really beautiful paper recently that looked at how schools call the mom first. Even when both parents are listed, both parents' numbers, even when the parents have indicated to call the dad first. Now, you might say, well, it's, schools are sexist. They're not. They just want to call who they think is going to respond. And so all you need is tiny differences. And the differences that exist are still having a profound effect on schools and on how women work, right? Claudia Golden won the Nobel Prize for talking about how these small differences in flexibility that you have at work are prioritized differently depending on your parenting responsibilities. And so all you need is small, gender-based gaps in pay to mean that the mom wants to take the pay penalty and get the flexibility, and the dad wants the higher paying, inflexible job if you're trying to maximize family income, even if the dad would prefer to be the one with flexibility. But I think you see a lot of dissatisfaction among men and women. And that was actually one of the big lessons of COVID for me. Like, I fielded a survey where I saw this fact that dads were much happier now that they had more time with their kids, and the dads were making sacrifices at work. They were turning down promotions, they were turning down training, they were trying to switch to more flexible work. And so we talk a lot about a motherhood wage penalty, but I think we should also be talking about a fatherhood parenting penalty, because I think a lot of dads want that equal role. In both the workplace and our schools, everybody tries to push them away from it.
So talk about this from an economist's point of view. What happens in an economy when institutions like schools stay kind of frozen in one era, but families and couples and women and mothers in particular move into another era? And there's this disconnect between the two.
Well, frankly, it holds the economy back. Kids going home from school, let's say 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, is not ideal for anybody's workday. That's, not a time where people are naturally taking breaks. If we had better institutions that were designed for our modern era, then people could make better choices that would allow them to take full advantage of their skills and the contribution they want to make to paid work, to work in the home, to raising their kids.
Why are institutions like schools so difficult to change on something that seems to me so basic and that every parent complains about?
I honestly wish I could give you a great answer to that question, but I don't think that there is one.
You've been in government, Betsey. You should know.
Yes, but the thing is, so here I'm going to answer it as an economist. So I could say, well, governments are slow to change and there's so many, interested parties whose interests might be different, right? So teachers have notoriously don't have very high pay, but they tend to have the equivalent of around, 3-4 months vacation when you add it all in, the days off and the Christmas break and the summer break. So then you look at their pay. If that's their pay for 8 months worth of work and 4 months worth of vacation, it's not quite as bad. If you were going to ask them to work 12 months out of the year, I think they would rightfully want a 50% pay increase. And I think a lot of people don't want to think about spending a much bigger budget, so that there's budgets. And then you have to coordinate in a way that it works across all the schools at the same time, because it doesn't help you if one school's doing it, but the other school's not. Now, as an economist, I might say, why doesn't somebody start opening up, private schools that better meet the needs of parents? And, I think one of the challenges there is that the parents with actually the most flexibility to manage this, I hear the complaints from like highly educated, working parents as well. But in reality, they're the ones who can manage this the easiest.
Because they can buy in extra help. They can buy in somebody to do that 3 p.m. pickup.
Exactly. The parents who really need this are lower income and middle income parents who are trying to figure out how to balance it without spending a lot more money on childcare that they don't have. And, there are some school districts that try to fill in with after school help. So there's some kludgy workarounds. But what would be good for giving equal access to all kids would be a school day that was designed to look and feel more like a work day, that built in more breaks for the kids during the day. When my kids were in Michigan public schools and elementary school, the lunch break was 20 minutes, which I think is an absurdly short period of time.
Yeah.
So they're sending my kids home way earlier than I want them, and they're not giving them a break during the day to have a long leisurely lunch. I remember my daughter coming home in first grade and saying, "Mommy, please teach me how to eat fast." And that was
oh my God.
and that was because, they're trying to get all the things they want to get done, but they're also going to keep the kids for a shorter period of time.
If we were to have the day that you have described that would be ideal for parents, and for children too, which was longer but had more breaks, looked more like a kind of normal work day, and perhaps even had these, shorter holidays than the 3-month summer holiday, what would be the economic consequences of that? What potentially could be unlocked because of that?
So I think what you would see is women being able to choose the jobs in which they are going to be the most productive and that they're going to enjoy the most, the job that is best for them, rather than the constrained choice of the job that's best for me, conditional on me being able to manage my kids when they get out of school. And so whenever you have people who are constrained by that kind of limit, what you're going to see is slower economic growth. So I think we would see faster economic growth come out of it if we had these better institutions. And, I think that would go on for quite some time, because I think we do not pay enough attention to the way in which the school day, by catering to norms of a mom being responsible for kids, also really weighs down on girls' ambition, even when they're young. So we've got entire, changing the school day in a way to make the institution fit better with modern society isn't just going to help moms today, but it's going to help girls become their full ambitious self.
Because girls are seeing the restrictions that are placed on their mothers.
Absolutely.
Betsey, thank you very much for joining me.
It's great talking with you.